What is up guys, welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In this one, I'm going to build one of the best price to performance gaming PCs you can assemble right now. For in and around a $1,500 budget, this build utilizes some of my favorite components of the year to deliver epic 1440p performance in everything from the latest AAA titles like Alan Wake 2 and Star Wars Outlaws, right through to easier to run competitive esports games like Apex Legends and Fortnite. I'm going to take you guys along for the ride, showing you how to put this system together, why I love some of the parts in this exact build so much, and seeing what goes right and maybe a little bit wrong. Oh, that was nearly bad along the way. Let's do this. Now, I figured there was no better way to round out the year than with a system that happens to use some of my favourite parts of 2024. And the CPU and GPU combo is a perfect example of that. AMD's Radeon RX 7900 XT and the Ryzen 5 9600X is one of the most powerful CPU and GPU combos currently on the market. And on the price to performance metrics, it frankly crushes basically everything else. The 7900 XT was a card that started out way too expensive and wasn't really advisable to buy, but it's fallen in price and dramatically from its $899 MSRP to, in some instances, below $650. For that, you're going to get awesome 1440p performance that rivals Nvidia's 4070 Ti Super. Yes, it sometimes falls a little short, but it's a much cheaper GPU. And as far as rasterization goes, this card kills it. Nvidia GPUs obviously have their advantages, and DLSS is just better than FSR, both in terms of the upscaling and frame generation functionality. But for this build, where we want to maximize frame rate across the widest range of titles, frankly, that's not really that important. When we're gaming at 1440p, we're more likely to see a GPU bound than a CPU bound bottleneck, but AMD's Ryzen 5 9600X is still a great shout. Again, and there's a bit of a pattern emerging here, when this launched, you shouldn't buy it. It was too expensive compared to the last gen 7600X, and while the modest improvement to power consumption and performance was welcome, it wasn't enough to justify the extra $70. Now they're basically the same price, or there's $10 in it. I'll leave latest pricing and availability for everything today mentioned down below. Plus, you can also actually buy this exact system pre-built if you're based here in the UK from us and my new PC building company, GeekaPC. I'll link that down below as well. For 1440p gaming though, this is going to be a killer combo. You've got a little bit of legs for 4K, but you should manage your expectations there. And at 1080p, this is just a complete monster. Now, the idea behind this build is to make it good now and into the future. I hate the word future-proofing because you can never guarantee that a part combo's necessarily going to be that great in a year or two's time. However, the AM5 platform from AMD is super upgradable, and that's why arguably gone a little overkill with the cooler. The Ryzen 5 is not a hot CPU. This is one of the most cool and efficient chips on the market. However, going for a budget 360mm, this is the Montech Hyperflow ARGB 360, isn't a bad shout. It gives us 3 extra fans for the build, making the system look a bit more full and aiding with airflow. It's quieter than an air cooler, will deliver better temperatures, and if you wanted to upgrade the CPU in a couple of years' time, AMD have said they're going to support the same socket that our Ryzen 5 9600X uses until at least 2027. This is going to be a really good option. Again, a little more money, but it fits inside the $1,500 budget perfectly. Another one of my components that is, wow, one of my favorite parts is this, the GeekaWhat B650 Eagle AX. And I love this board so much, I bought 14. Yes, 14. They're in a lot of the builds that we feature over on GeekaPC. I got a bit carried away at checkout and meant to order 4 and I ordered 14. What? But I'm not mad about it because it's a really good board. Now, James, why is this so good? Plain and simply, it's one of the best value Wi-Fi enabled B650 motherboards. It's got PCI 5 functionality on the M.2 slot, and while the graphics card X16 slot is only PCI Gen 4, that's enough for even up to a current 4090, and we're expecting maybe the 5090 to leverage Gen 5, but the lower tier cards certainly won't, and AMD have said they're not going to compete at the top end of the market, so I don't honestly think this is an issue. Connectivity on this board is also really strong too. You can see that we've got an M.2 slot right at the top here, additional ones down below, room for up to 4 RAM DIMMs, so that's going to give you dual channel memory and good upgrade path. We're only using 2 of the 4 DIMMs today, and if we take a peek at the rear I/O, you'll also see there's Wi-Fi built in, which is great to see, plenty of USB ports including Type-C, 3.2 Gen 2 for 10 gigabit throughput, Ethernet, and some display outputs if you're using a chip with, well, any display graphics functionality. I probably should talk about the RAM or the memory I'm using in this build. This is a 30 32GB kit from Corsair. It's their Vengeance RGB DDR5. It's available in a range of speeds, capacities, and latencies. Basically, you want 6000 MHz or higher, CL32 or lower, and 32 gigs spread across two 16GB DIMMs. Nice and easy. You don't want 16 gigs, it's not enough anymore. 48 or 64 is, in my view, overkill. Storage is another favourite of mine, Crucial's P3 Plus. Again, we bought loads of these, featured them in loads of builds, and I don't want to sound boring, but I use it because it's just the best value option. Honestly, not much comes close to this drive, so I can highly recommend you pick it up for your system. Two more components to talk about. Power is the first one. This is the Corsair RM750E ATX3, meaning not only do you get the new fancy GPU power cable, which we don't need, again, good for the future, but you get better things like support for higher transient spikes, lower idle power consumption, and just a newer generation in terms of the design of the power supply, which is good to see. 750 watts is plenty for today's build. You honestly don't need any more than that. The only thing I haven't talked about is the very heavy Montech King 95 Pro. And despite Montech launching a subsequent cheaper King 65 Pro, which I also very much like, this thing is the and in the UK, that means it's really quite fantastic. Oh, that was nearly bad. I nearly lost my toe. Look what happened. I nearly died. I should just clarify, by the way, before I'm sued by a retailer or PC case brand, that wasn't packaged like we've used this before. It's our fault. It's not Montech's fault. So you haven't got to worry about that if you buy this case yourself. The good news is, though, it does come packaged very well. The foam in this is amazing. It's the really absorbent soft cell foam. So you're going to be really well protected in transit. And Montech are one of those brands this year who have just absolutely blown me away with the quality of what they've delivered. It's honestly unbelievable. Now, what's fantastic about this chassis is basically everything. It's not sponsored, by the way, I just actually love it. So it's got a glass panel on the side. Okay, James, nothing new there, but the tint isn't too dark. The tint on the King 65 is too dark for me. I like to see into my builds. 3 ARGB reverse blade fans on the bottom, 240mm reverse blades on the side, 3 ARGB 120mm exhausts at the top. Remember, we're going to have a radiator up there, so we may be able to either replace those and put one at the back or have them in push-pull. We'll see. A nice dual chamber, room for the case at the rear, easy to remove top panel with plenty of mesh ventilation, and a form factor that's nice and cubic but isn't too massive and isn't going to take up an enormous amount of space, especially as far as height is concerned. Build quality, absolutely superb, and for the price, I'm not sure there is much on the market better than this from Montech. Look, all the panels are toolless. It just comes apart so easily and is a dream. I featured it loads this year and I still don't think anything's come close. So great work, Montech. PC case of the year for me is easily the King 95 Pro. Shall we go ahead though and get this thing built? I think we probably should. I'm going to start with the CPU, installing this, of course, into the CPU socket. Just line up the triangles. You guys know this by now. RAM is going to go into the 2nd and 4th DIMM slots as always, and the M.2 drive is going to go into the top M.2 heatsink. I'm even trying out my fancy new LTT screwdriver I also bought. Quite like it. It's very satisfying. Just listen to this. I haven't got like an affiliate link for that. I just quite like it. The next order of business is the cooler. Now, while I'm not necessarily going to install the radiator and everything else, I am just going to check how the water block installs onto the CPU. You might notice from our overhead camera angle, the black plastic stock brackets that come included with the motherboard normally have been removed for a previous system, and I just need to see whether or not they need to go back on for this AMD configuration today. So let's have a look, shall we? Aha. So yes, what needs to happen is this is going to go around the CPU water block and then clamp on top of the CPU with the raised portions going over the stock black plastic brackets. So I'm going to return the stock brackets into place. You guys shouldn't have to do this if it's a brand new board. Then add the AMD brackets and associated screw paraphernalia onto the CPU water block of our Montech Hyperflow CPU cooler. Once the cooler's on, I'm then going to go ahead and remove those top 3 fans, put the cooler at the top instead, and move one of the fans that's free to the rear. Before that though, the motherboard is obviously going to be the priority, as if you're trying to get that in after the cooler's already installed, you're going to have a hard time. Check all the standoff locations in the case match the motherboard. What you're looking for really on ATX is 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and a further 3 down the bottom. We're all good as we've got an ATX board with standard standoff locations. Get this screwed in nice and securely, and then follow up with the liquid cooler after. As I say, that's going to go at the top of this build, and I'm going to move the spare fan to the rear. So that is all sorted. I think that's looking pretty good. That rear fan's nice, and although these fans aren't an exact match, they should fit the build well, and they're all going to run into the same RGB controller on the front of the case, meaning they can all be synced nice and easily later. Now, the next step is probably cables, wiring, and and the power supply, the GPU makes sense to do in a moment as the last step of the build, really. And as discussed earlier, the Corsair RM750E is what I'm going to go for in this system. Really, really solid power supply, really easy, nice and compact, has good efficiency, good wattage output. It just ticks a lot of boxes, really, for me. I'm going to plug up the motherboard, GPU, CPU, and a SATA power connection to the power supply first, then screw the PSU into the case and run all of these to the appropriate places on the motherboard. Top left, the center right hand side, and of course the GPU power is going to wait for a few moments. I'm also going to pop in all the front panel cables at this stage, including USB Type-C, USB Type-A, HD audio, which goes to the bottom left, and JFP1, which goes to the bottom right. Then it's finally time to finish things off with the GPU. Now, as you can see, that's going to slot right at the top of the build here, and I'm going to need to remove the second and third PCI lanes. The top one can stay in. This is the sort of Founders Edition equivalent, or AMD's own in-house design. You have to be careful, it's not actually a reference design, because the clock speeds I think are slightly boosted over the default board. However, it's still AMD's own version. I'll link the next best available thing down below. Truth be told, with any graphics card, just go for the cheapest design of that GPU. Now, yes, there's some exceptions. Make sure it's got 2 or 3 fans, make sure it's got good reviews, the color scheme matches, all that kind of stuff. However, spending loads of money on a top-end 7900 XT isn't necessarily going to bag you any more performance. Push the clip back on the PCI slot, slide the graphics card into place, a little something like this, yeah. And then add the same screws you just removed back in to secure it down. 2 8-pin PCI power connectors, and the graphics card is going to be powered up and ready to go. And with that, we've got ourselves a gaming PC build. Give me a few moments to get this thing wired up. We'll take a look at performance, but first it's time for the last GeekaWhat montage of the year. Looking amazing. I am a really big fan of Montage's King 95, and I think for a build like this, it just looks incredible. But what about performance, and how well does this system stack up? Well, the first title I've tested is this, the brand new Formula 1 2024. And here at the 4K ultra high preset, the build did well, pulling in an average of 160 frames per second. Moving through into a harder to run title, in Cyberpunk 2077, we saw the lowest frame rate of any result today, with an average frame rate of 75 FPS. Still not bad for what is predominantly an RPG game and not a competitive esports title. While Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 Zombies upped the ante a little bit on the frame rate front at 4K high settings, delivering just over 100 frames per second on average. The 1% and 0.2% lows were pretty good as well, and in Zombies, I thought at this high resolution, it delivered a really visually pleasing gaming experience. Moving through into Hogwarts Legacy, which is again a little harder to run, frame rates were still solid though, with over 80 FPS, giving more than enough frame rate in my opinion for the kind of game that this is. Fortnite at 1080p competitive settings sent the frame rate flying, with an average frame rate of over 300 frames per second on average. That's with everything tuned down to low except the render distance, which was tuned up to far. While finally Apex Legends delivered strong performance too, with around 195 FPS on average at 4K high. This is a build that's really capable of delivering fantastic frame rates in all the latest AAA titles and competitive frame rates in esports games alike. And it's a system that I not only think looks great, but delivers the good stuff too. And if you're based here in the UK, you can buy this system pre-built from us over at GeekaPC. Similarly, if you're over in the US or elsewhere, you can check out latest pricing for individual parts in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.